Hey guys, welcome back. We're going to look at another aspect of my base, and we're going to keep on theme to what we looked at last time, which was loot or resource generation. So last time we looked at loot and how to get loot from mobs. Today we're going to look at a mod called Resourceful Bees, which do a very similar thing in that they generate loot, but in the form of honeycombs. So you can see here these hives are active and they generate these honeycombs, which can then be crafted into other things. So again, it's an extremely useful mod. It does take a lot of time and a lot of work and a lot of effort, but I'm extremely happy and extremely proud of what I've done out here. So in the mod pack, it generates into the world all of these different types of bees, and they will create different things depending on what type of bee they are. So for example, if I go to the wither bee and I go to the beehive, it generates wither honeycomb, and then from the wither honeycomb I can actually make these things. But if I actually put it into the centrifuge, it will actually generate 25% to generate honey, a 1% chance to generate nether stars, and a 20% chance to generate beeswax, which you do need to create a lot of these blocks. All right, and if you've got a bottle in there, it'll actually put the honey into a bottle, which is probably easier to use, which I've done with most of my systems. So that's just one example, and that's why it can be very useful. Again, I've got the woots set up for nether stars, but I do also have a couple of wither bees. Now the real reason that I actually went through all of that effort to do this, sorry, and I don't need to go there because I already have it open here. Is to get these top end ones, which are the 3 hardest ones to get, which are from all the mod pack. They're the ones that I actually wanted, and they're the 3 that have the metals that you can only get from all in the mod pack. So this bee, which is the unobtainium bee, this one, which is the vibranium bee, and there's a yellow one somewhere, which is all the modium bee. There you go. So those 3, which I'll show you. They're at the end here, and they're, again, they generate honeycombs, but then they can be used to generate ingots of those types. So if I look at the modium bee and go to beehive, it generates all the modium honeycomb. And if I have a look here at the centrifuge, it'll give me 2% chance to give me an modium nugget, which is very low, but when I've got them running constantly, it doesn't really matter, because then I'll eventually get enough nuggets to create an ingot and just go from there. So if I actually have a look here, and I go, okay, so you can see at the moment I have 1,400 modium nuggets, and I've got 600 unobtainium nuggets and 750 vibranium nuggets. So very useful, but did take a lot of work to get to this point. And if you actually have a look at what I've got on, I've got vibranium for my helmet, my jetpack, my leggings, and my boots, which you can see is very strong. And this cleaver is made out of modium, which I did show you in the previous episode. Extremely powerful, but the one downside of that is that when you're swinging it, you can't actually move. You might be able to hear me hitting the W button. I can't actually move because it's so heavy. Okay, so to start off with the bees, you need, and if I go back to the mod, you need the jars, where there they are, the empty bee jars, and then you just go around the world trying to find bees and capturing them in the jars. So I went and did that, and I've actually got a chest inside my original base where a lot of them I kept because they're not ones that I really needed or wanted. But I would have started off with these easy beehives, right? So this has got actually a vanilla bee, and they just would have been set up to get these early honeycombs. So you need a fire underneath, a campfire underneath, so that the bee is not aggroed. So it will actually go into the beehive and generate honeycombs. And you actually need a scraper to get the honeycombs out. Now, there's not really an easy way to set it up, but the way that I've done it is with this redstone clock, and it ticks over, every 60 seconds. And the dispenser there has a scraper in it, and so it will do it automatically for me. Now, the problem is that there's no easy way to get the loot, and the reason why these three are just hanging above the air is what I've got going on here is this item collector from the mod Cyclic. And so anything in a 12 block radius, so 12 blocks that way, 12 blocks that way, it will pick up, but only on whichever height you've set it. So I've set it for height 1. So it's only going to pick up anything on the ground. So that's why these ones are not actually being picked up, because when they got scraped out of the hive, they didn't actually fall to the ground. They actually stayed on top. So that's why they're stuck there. And if I really needed them, which I would have early game, I would go in and collect them, but at the moment I don't really need them. So it's a good demonstration. And when it's full, you'll actually see that honey seems to be leaking out at the bottom. You can actually click on this, and you can actually go and you can see in the top left it says there are 2 bees in there. Now, the only other thing to this is you can see that there's a block here. So for me, it's a fridge, because the 2 bees that are in here are, and I forget the name of them, but they're the Kobe beef bees. So they're actually generating Kobe beef honeycomb, which can be used to create food. So these honeycombs can actually be crafted into different types of food. Now, the reason why I have a fridge in there is because each different bee needs a different block to pollinate from. So this one has a block of gunpowder, because this is a TNT bee. And I'm not sure that that's the correct name, but it'll do. So they all have different ones. So this one has clay. Okay. And you'll see this a bit clearer in these ones, which we'll get to in a second. So those ones all have that. This one you can see has the honey kind of leaking out of it, which shows it's full. And the reason for that is because I haven't set it up with the dispenser on the back to do it automatically, because I was using this one to breed the bees originally. So the other cool thing about the mod, and the thing that takes a bit of time, is that to actually get to the high level of bees, you can't actually find some of them. So for example, I can't actually go and find an All-the-Modium bee, right? Because it says, right, doesn't spawn in the world. All right, so I actually have to be able to get it. I actually have to get it from other bees. So I actually have to use it to get the high tier. So that's why there is a bit of work behind all of this too. So once you've set up this system here and have these automatically going, after a certain amount of time you'll be able to create blocks of honey, and the blocks of honey are used to create some of the blocks that are in these. So these are apiaries, so just like beehives, except they are a multi-block structure. So it has a breeder in here, which you can see you can put the bees into here with the type of block that it needs to generate pollen, same for both, and then it will pop this out after a certain amount of time. But it does have a chance to fail, so it doesn't work every single time. Okay, and as with most of my multi-block structures, it goes back to my ME system, so I don't have to stand here and do it. And this is the storage. So like the beehives, they need blocks to pollinate on. So you can see that there's a vibranium block and there's an all-the-modium block. And so these two are going around, and eventually they'll go and land on the top. And then once they've got the pollen, they'll go in to this block here, which is the apiary block. And you can see there's 2 in there at the moment. And then I'll get the honeycombs out of them. And so this is how you also input and export bees from the apiary. So and it generates as a multi-block structure when all the blocks are in there, so it won't work otherwise. And it needs to be at a certain position and everything. So I can lock them, and then they won't leave this block here. So that's how I could export them. If I lock them, and then I could drag it out to export it, and then I click export. And it's the same with import. If I put it in here, I can click import. So I have 2 of them going on there. I have 2 going in here. This is an iron one and a gold one, and there should also be a couple of others in here, because you can see there are 4 blocks going on here. That's an iron one there, and that's a gold one there on the right. So iron, gold, I've got a copper, and I've got a quartz bee. So that's a block of quartz, and over there's a block of copper. This one's only got 2 in it. All right, so you can see that this is the, I think, the unobtainium bee. And then on the left here is the draconic bee, which is also very, very hard to get. So those, the 4 that I've got going on at the moment in here, those 2 ones by themselves are the 4 hardest to get. And they took a very long time. And they're only because, as it says here, they do not spawn in the world. So you have to actually breed them from other bees. So it is, can be very difficult. And because it does only give you a certain chance to get each one. All right, so for example, with this, if I have a draconic bee and I have an all-the-modium block in there, it has a 20% chance to generate a spawn egg, which is the only way that these ones work. So you can't actually, and I know I said that they were breedable, I misspoke then. Some of these you actually can just, so for example, this quartz bee is breedable true, so it takes, it can go quartz and quartz bee, makes another quartz bee. That's not a very good example. Redstone bee, all right, here you go. So to make a redstone bee, I need a glowing bee and I need an RGB. All right, and then it has a 60% chance to create a redstone bee. With the draconic bee, for example, it says it's not breedable, but there is a way to get it, and that's by mutating these blocks. So I can get an egg, an all-the-modium egg, by doing putting an all-the-modium block in there, and it has a 20% chance to generate an all-the-modium spawn egg. Now, generally, what you get when you do these is the honeycombs, but there is a small chance if you put in an all-the-modium block instead of a draconic honeycomb block, or sorry, the end sand or end block, whichever one that's called. It has a chance to generate the egg instead of the honeycomb, which is what's going to come out 80% of the chance, 80% of the time from what we could just see from there. Okay, so very, very useful, but very difficult to set up. It does take a lot of time, and it is based on chance. So you can see, same one here. I've got a wither bee. I think that's a nether bee, netherite bee, wither bee, ender bee, and a withered bee. So again, they're probably the next tier of difficulty in terms of hard to get. Those bees, so you can see withered bee. Doesn't spawn in the world, but it has these bees as parents, a coal bee and a spooky bee, so you can use them to breed it. So very tricky. The ender bee in particular is tricky because it will, like the enderman, it will teleport around. But I have this set up, which is a ender beacon, which stops them from teleporting. But it does require honey, so I've got honey set up. From here, it's importing. Sorry, it's exporting from the ME system. It's exporting all the honey that is generating from these systems, and it's going straight back into here and used to keep this on at all times. Because if it didn't, those ender bees would just teleport away. The reason why I have an import bus here, and you might think, what am I importing from this, or what am I getting out of it, is because when it takes the honey out of the bottle, the empty bottle will go in here, and then I can reuse the bottles, so I don't have to create endless amounts of bottles. Next time I might talk about the power. There's one more part to this system that I want to show you. When you started off with these hives here, with the very small hives, it uses a manual centrifuge, so it will manually require you to enter and put all the honeycombs in. But when you get towards the late game, you can actually make these multi-block structures, which will do it for you. So I've got them set up. You can see this is an elite centrifuge, and it's actually doing it now. So you can see there's honeycomb. Sometimes it's working. So you could see there was an iron ingot in there a second ago. Sometimes it doesn't work. So you can see nothing's coming out because there's only a certain amount of chance that everything will actually come out. So it's also generating honey, which I've got this fluid tank out here for as well, if there's no bottles in there. So there's 64 bottles at the moment because, as we just saw, I'm exporting all of the bottles back to the ME system. This is the same thing, but it's just a normal centrifuge. This one's an elite centrifuge, so it's the same thing. It just does it a bit slower, and it also allows for a higher tier of things. So I've got 3 of these elite centrifuges and 1 original one. So this one's actually blocks. That's the reason why you use the apiaries instead of the hives. If you have a tier 3 or a tier 4 apiary, which you can see from here, so you can see there's a tier 1 beehive, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, and then you can actually make from here the tier 1 apiary, tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4. And from each one, depending on what bee you've got, so for example, let's just pick a copper bee. Sorry, I need to right click on it. If I just have a beehive, I'm going to get just one single copper honeycomb. But if I'm using the apiary, a tier 1 apiary will get me 8 copper honeycombs. A tier 2 will get me 16. A tier 3 will actually get me 4 blocks. And a tier 4 will actually give me 8 blocks. And the blocks are the same, except you need 9 of these to make a block. So it's much faster and much quicker and much more economic in terms of resources to get the blocks if you can. And then those will be processed through here whenever it comes in. All the ME inputs are underneath the ground, and then I put blocks back on top. Although you can see, as we talked about last or 2 episodes ago, some of these are facades, so you can see that that's a cable facade in the top left. So that means there's cables underneath there that are running for my ME system. And I think that's about it to do with Resourceful Bees. So another great loot system for generating loot from that you get from mobs when you don't have to actually go out and fight all the mobs. It does take a bit of setting up, but it's great to just have it running automatically, which is what the thing about all the mods pack that I love is that there's so much stuff to do with automation. You don't actually have to do it yourself. So I hope that you found that a bit interesting. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you guys all for watching. Have to come up with some ideas for a 100 subscriber special because we're looking like we're heading that way. So thank you all for that. Maybe, you know, it's a face reveal or something. I'll have to think about it. All right. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you next time.